Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Connected. As we have spent so much time exploring the different innovators that are part of the 100 Global Collection, we wanted to take a step back and take a look at the innovators who are right here with us every day, the members of the Connection Committee.
100 connected minds for human flourishing.
And so it is my absolute pleasure today to dive into the work of Hanneke Mackie out of South Africa, as we are joined as well by Lindsay Stewart, myself, and in just a little bit, Ananda Daha, as we learn about what Buzz Kidz is. What is the idea behind this excellent innovation, behind the music, behind the dance, and behind the fundamental learning that are going to build out the 21st skills that we know that our children are going to need in the future? Let's take a moment and hear from Hanneke about how she got to this point where she became an entrepreneur, where she became the kind of person who was so invested and focused in learning through music, learning through creativity, through expression, and through joy, and how that ended up becoming Buzz Kidz, the 100 innovation that we know it is today. So, Hanneke, take us back. Hold on. What do we say? Imagine I'm an alien that just landed from the planet Mars and explain it all to us.
I love that. And thank you so much, Alex and Lindsay, for this wonderful opportunity to share with my wonderful friends out of the 100 community about Buzz Kidz. Such a special honor to share this today. So thanks for having me in this seat on this side of the conversation today. And may I just start by saying that for the last 6 months or so, I've gone around the world being very proud of that 100 most innovative, inspiring, impactful education solutions for the world. So to be a part of this community is something that I can't stress enough, has been just such a wonderful way to elevate what we're doing with Buzz, to connect with others and to learn from others. But to answer your question, Alex, how do we get here today? And explaining it to you as if you're an alien that just landed from Mars. I think I've been compelled to do this. Sometimes I wish I was compelled to do something a little bit, more in banking or, big corporate, big money, but education chooses us, I think. And so does the arts in a way. I come from a family of educators, and I was from a very young little girl, very, very interested in the performing arts, very big personality and a very big expressive way of looking at the world, and found my voice that way. I ended up being studying theater. And very quickly after getting my degree, I realized that I was afraid of standing in the world, especially this world we live in today, as just art for art's sake type of artist. I had massive bills to pay, student loans, and I had, on the other side, this big urge for doing something that could have a real impact on society. My thesis was on Theatre for Social Change, which was political theatre, South Africa. I had dipped into um, theatre and education in my studies, and everything kind of pushed me and my love for children into a world where I had to make money, had to do something more sustainable than just waited to be cast in something. Although I have no judgment of that, it's absolutely beautiful to be able to just be a pure actor. But for me, it wasn't a realistic career choice. I had to do something, and at the same time, I had to do something. I had to do something, especially in a place like South Africa. I had to have some impact. I had to. So I found myself I was a drama teacher in a school. And very quickly, there was no curriculum. I realized that I had to find a way to reach every single child. And so I faked it until I made it. It was very much like the Emperor's New Clothes, walking around, very young girl, having to figure out how to teach. And the magic of what the arts could be for every single child, I think, then bit me in a way that I realized this is not about making a bunch of little Beyoncés or Michael Jacksons or Taylor Swifts or making children into big extroverts. No, it's the magic of what it gives a child in terms of the social emotional development, their soft skills, the interpersonal skills, the things that they actually need socially, emotionally to cope. that it was just so clear to me how the arts can do that. And I kind of found and built curriculum and language for myself as I went along, and found myself moving to the UK for a couple of years. They're working for similar companies and organizations. And also, again, it was an urge for me to learn and earn in the UK, but come back to South Africa to apply some of those incredible learnings in a place that needed it so much. So then when I turned 30, which is now 13 years ago, I came back to South Africa, and this big round number, like I'm going to be a real adult now in my 30s and I'm going to start Buzz. And I started it living in a spare room with my friends, sitting on a bed and pretending like it was this big organization. Like people would call and I'd be like, hold for such and such, and then put in a different voice on. But I really, from the very beginning, wanted it to be this big sort of organization that people could trust and be a real voice in terms of child development through the arts, this thing, this niche I felt like I saw, and I wanted to give it a space in the market. So we started as extramural clubs using drama, dance, and singing, and we would do it independently. So in church halls and dance studios, and people would find us on Facebook and bring their children so that we could develop their confidence, communication skills, creativity. But very quickly, schools took notice of us, and we went into the schools of South Africa as an extramural, extracurricular provider for them exclusively, or also to replace their performing arts in their schools. And that then also developed into giving some of those everyday teachers teaching everyday subjects some tools around how they could make their learning in the classroom a little bit more creative and fun. And so what was born was a bunch of different products that Buzz sits with today. Today, there is a franchise network, and it's the franchise network that allows us to have physical teams in the world delivering the product. In the sort of more commercial end, on the nonprofit side, there's a nonprofit product, and that allows us to send teams into the world. Nonprofit and or franchise is the workforce, they are the soldiers in the world, and they are then able to do this in-person delivery of the drama, dance, and singing product as an extramural in the school day product. And then for the teachers, we have an online platform where teachers can come and look at the learning topics that they have to teach about and find tools, including original music, to make that learning more fun, more alive. And all of that just underpins what we stand for, which is that children should be exposed to the arts. And there's a lot of research that says that children do better when they have been exposed to the arts. They do better academically, their 21st century skills are better developed, etc., etc. And I still hear from Professor Anne Bamford, and she calls it education in arts and education through arts. So we do both. We have a beautiful curriculum. It's education in arts, the drama, dance, singing, the original music, and it's all just for the sake of those 21st century skills. But then education through art as well, which is when the everyday teacher gets some simple tools to really help them learn through play, through the arts. And we do this with children from birth to 13. And always the music is original, the content, the stories, the characters. And that lives also as a podcast for children. So there's a lot we do, but at the heart of it, it's really the commitment that the arts transform lives, and we need to be intentional about the marriage of art and education. And that's what we do in whatever way we can across this nation of ours, and now a little bit further afield as well.
Hanneke, thank you. I really appreciate, gosh, you answered many of my questions, but one that's bubbled to the surface is how you've talked a lot about how the arts transforms kids. What about the teachers that you work with? What impact do you see when you're going into schools, and how that may affect teachers' practices?
Big time. And also the facilitators and the franchisees. So we like to say we like to transform lives, big and little, little and big, you know. And another passion is, of course, the transformation that happens for the adult, who either facilitates the workshops or teaches with these tools in formal educational setting. It is absolutely powerful what something like just music brings in. When we are learning about the reptiles in the sort of, and I'm talking about now foundation phase, you know, your early learning, sort of here in sort of what you would call elementary school, you know, say we're learning about mammals or reptiles or transport. We can all do a worksheet, we can all write something, we can all draw a picture. But suddenly, if there's a song about reptiles, there's a whole different part of the brain that's now being involved. We're moving our bodies, and the neurodiverse children and everyone is now engaged. But as you say, what happens to the teacher? We see teachers that have been teaching for 20 years and they're very stuck in a certain way of doing it. And when you first ask them to play an embodied game about these reptiles or just do some actions to the song, they're like, oh no, I can't. And we hold hands and we show them how simple it is because it's just accessing the child inside you. And suddenly the connection that happens between the learner or the scholar or the child and the teacher is something completely different. We see that they look at the difficult children completely differently. We see that there's more job retention, like teachers actually stay because there's obviously a huge problem with teachers, especially South Africa and Africa. There's a shortage of teachers and job retention is a massive thing. More rural children staying engaged in learning. So the process is that everyone actually develops their 21st century skills. The process is that both the big and the small person is becoming more creative, more expressive, more confident, more curious, more collaborative. And who says that learning should be a stale experience, you know? I always say learning that is fun is learning that lasts. So the teacher's having more fun, the child is having more fun, the environment is vibrant and alive and buzzing, really, as a verb.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
Hanneke, I have this question for you, and this is because I love look when you start talking about arts and saying with Lindsay, like your eyes just light up. That is so amazing. It feels like your heart is like shining through your eyes, like it is all coming out, and it's really contagious. So I have this question. When there's like this group of learners who are maybe a little bit older, or maybe they have unlearned, they have forgotten their spark. Their spark is maybe, it is, I believe it's still in everybody, inside of everybody, but they feel maybe uncomfortable with any type of arts. They just have unlearned to feel comfortable with it. So my question for you, maybe also Lindsay has something to add to that later on too. But first, Hanneke, what would you do if you have like, because you're so excited about doing any activity, any spell activity or whatever you want. But if you feel like there's not this connection with the learners, they're not as excited as you are, what do you do? Like, what is like maybe some piece of advice that you have for educators or facilitators if you experience that in a group of learners? If you want to start an activity, but the energy is not quite right with some learners.
So the majority of our work that we do is with very little humans, which luckily they still really are able to instantly suspend disbelief, and they do it so readily. I mean, I was doing a recording session last week, and I was doing puppets, and without any puppets in my hand, and I told the instructional videos like, you don't need puppets to do puppets. You just need to deliver the performance to such a degree that the child will go, yeah, 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 you know? So the beauty of children is that they're able to suspend disbelief. And of course, we work with children from birth to 13. So your preteens that we do work with are the ones who start to become a little bit too cool for school and, you know, not wanting to engage. So those tools of how you access them and kind of get them excited become a little bit different. Then the question of what do you do when it is a teacher, because we do a lot of teacher training and we give them access to this platform. And I've just done an exercise with you guys on this very strange, unusual platform. Can you imagine that the grade 4 or grade 2 teachers looking at this video for the first time and they've seen this training, now they've got to try it and they go, oh, that's not me, that's not really, I'm not an extrovert, I don't really have an artsy personality. And for me, the answer with an adult would always be to kind of try and access your inner child, to try and just for a moment imagine like you're doing this as if you're 5. And for most adults, what we do see when we do go and we work with them, they all come in initially with the water bottle and the keys and the handbag and the whip as the safety blanket, like, don't make me participate. And then we say, put your stuff down over there and come sit here in your body. And they've got nothing to hold. That's first of all, the safety net is something to hold. And see, the thing is, we are all just kids inside. So we do the first game with them and we don't give them enough opportunity to object and say, I can't. We just like, go. And there's enough of us around them to just get going. And before you know it, they're giggling. They are embodied. They are competitive. They want to beat each other. You've got like 45-year-old women trying to elbow each other to win in the game if there's something competitive about it. I once remembered walking into one of the poshest schools in Johannesburg, South Africa, and starting a teacher training with them, and just setting it up with that type of, to answer your question, that type of commitment from me, the facilitator. I don't care if you're rolling your eyes. I don't care if you think this is silly. I'm going to go for it fully, like I just did and made, a very silly thing for a podcast. But I did it, and I commit fully, and it always catches you off guard. You've got to catch the participant off guard, and before you know it, their sense of joy, sense of fun is activated. I walked into the school and I started, and these people were stiff as ice. They didn't want anything to do with the training. This is years ago, and by the end of it, one of the women had actually broken her wrist because she was so fully like a kid when we were playing. I was like, oh my God, this is not safe. The way they were like gung ho. We have to remember that all children are willing to suspend disbelief readily. They are. And if you tell them, I'm going to play a game and you pretend this and I pretend that, now you've taken the magic away. No, just go for it. Just go for it instantly, right? I always say you can make anything exciting for children. You can say to children, they suddenly like, oh, this is fun putting my socks on because of how I have delivered it. So my top tip is don't share the magic. Just do the magic. Don't say, I am going to follow this recipe. Just start baking. Don't be like, we're going to play a game. No, just play the game. And you're accessing your creative self. And, so yes, it's difficult with older children. Yes, it's difficult with teachers. But because I work with so many little chunky chunkies all day long, I know that that's still in us. And isn't that what Picasso said and everyone? It's about going back to that child, and Einstein, like going back to that creativity that is of the child in you that hasn't been lost. So yeah, I know it might sound cheesy, but that's really the only way to do it. Catch them
So
off
really
guard.
embodying it, like modeling it, living it,
Mm,
rather than telling them what to do.
yeah.
Is that
And
what I'm?
as yeah, and as a pedagogue, as a teacher, you've got to get rid of that feeling like you can't be silly. If you're not allowing yourself to be silly, then they'll never be silly. So the teacher has to be the ultimate willing to make a fool of themselves to access that
Next
space.
level silly.
Yeah, man.
I used to do similar things with my high school students, and I think before we started recording, Hanneke was saying that she likes to focus her attention on the littler ones, and as she
Yeah,
talked about earlier, it's from birth up to 13. But when you get to high school, and even a little bit in middle school, but I think middle school kids are still generally happy to play.
yeah.
But you really have to establish that early as well, of saying,
Mm,
I'm going to try something and I want you to come with me. And if,
mm,
in my experience, if you frame it as such as like, I'm the one going out on a limb here, I'm the one going to create this permission structure where we're going to do something kind of weird. I'm not going to tell you what it is fully. We're going to do something a little bit weird. We are going to explore something new. When I would start my classes, like the first or second class of the year, I would try to get my students into this mind of, okay, we're going to learn French. It's not going to look anything like what you've done before. And I used a method called TPR, total physical response, where you give them commands in the target language. But I would do this just for like a week or two or so. But I would get the one kid who I could tell was right on the cusp of wanting to do it. And then I would ask them to come and volunteer with me. And I would give them a structure in which it's okay, and not just okay, you're kind of expected to be a little weird, but you don't have to decide what the weird is. You get to decide the degree of the weird. But I'm
yeah,
going to tell you that here we're being weird, and I know that you've always wanted to be weird, so we're going to let it happen. And it's exactly what Hanneke talked about. Like, you don't need to explain what the magic is. You don't need to say what's going on. Instead, you just let that little spark of joy, that little fire of creativity of, is this what learning can be, happen? And then you can leverage that into bigger, more creative, more ambitious, and CPR is good, but more pedagogically intensive things. And I think it's really when it gets to those older kids, helping them understand that having fun is in fact very cool. You just have to remember how to do it.
exactly. And I love what you said. Like that is so true. Like you cannot be like here as the teacher going, go be silly. You cannot. You have to, I mean, it's hard to work with adults, to go in as teachers, often much older people than me that have done it for longest time. They're experts in whatever they're teaching, and then you're coming in and you're asking them to wobble around like jelly as we do a warm up. And they, if I'm not wobbling full wobble, it's not going to work. And another tip, and of course, it scales high school children, adults, it all depends. So there's more nuanced little tools, of course. But another small tip, it's a tiny thing, but I have a rule of never going down a line, but especially with adults. Because if you go down a line, by the time like Lindsay's going, um, okay, there's three more goes. Okay, and she's starting to overanalyze what she's going to say if it's her turn. So my rule is to clap over the head and I move around the space. And it just, you might think when you say that you're going to make the children super anxious, but actually you reduce anxiety because they don't know when it's going to be their turn. And when it's their turn, they just have to trust the impulse or the instinct. And yes, sometimes they don't have one and you support that through. But you just create space for impulse and instinct to stay alive in their ideas. And the first word is okay, even if it's wrong. And that's another beautiful thing about drama and the arts is there is no wrong. Another big thing we do is we clap and cheer and ululate when people make a mistake. Because I always say to the kids, I'm like, this is the best way we can learn. Thank you so much for getting that dance step wrong. Thank you. Now we've all learned. So it's just about putting stuff on its head a little bit and about being able to be the biggest fool, I think.
Is that like also when I hear you talk about that, it reminds me of growth mindset, right?
Mm, mm,
So making mistakes and embracing mistakes is like such a big part of having a growth mindset, being able to choose a growth mindset. Is that
yeah.
something that you talk about
Oh,
with your team?
so much. I mean, the core of everything that is the very thing that makes us human and is going to make us potentially able to keep living on this planet and live and thrive here happily is the ability to create. And the ability to create rests on the ability to be wrong and to be able to stomach that. If you're able to make mistakes, and I love to talk about fail forward, you guys know this from our conversations, done is better than perfect. So the very core of creativity, and that's the Ken Robinson loose quote that I just did there, because he is basically, I think I am like forever and ever in his cult of education transformation. Like he was just the greatest. But he spoke so much about if you're not willing to if you're not willing to be wrong, you'll never be able to come up with an original idea. And it's original ideas that save the world, that transforms various different industries. So again, I want to be clear. Buzz Kids is not about building artists. Yeah, a few kids might be artists, and I'm so, so happy for that. But Buzz Kids is about using the arts so that children are more inquisitive scientists and leaders and fill in the blank industry that we don't even know yet is coming, so that they can solve problems you and I cannot predict. We cannot predict. The World Economic Forum says 70% of jobs won't exist in 10 years. 70% of jobs. That is both scary and exciting. The only thing they're going to need is to have original thought and to be able to iterate with that. Now, if that's the requirement of our children, then what the hell are we doing still going traditionally with traditional schoolings for old outcomes, which is about regurgitating something that studies show children can't even regurgitate that 3 months later, because that's how old learning works. It's just about filling in facts and then dumping them, but you haven't remembered or retained anything, versus potentially making room in education for children to be able to ask a question, be wrong, contribute their idea, not be afraid to work with others. And it's those skills that we're saying the arts nurture in a child. It's not saying everyone needs to be Beyonce. Love her, love Taylor, need some more of those. But that's not the goal of arts education. And I wish people could get that, because as soon as say arts, people sometimes glaze over and they're like, oh, here she goes. And they think that's what we're about. They think that the arty freaks are all about like wanting everyone to dance and prance around. No, we've got a magical bullet. We've got skills here that's pivotal for the. I mean, I literally sometimes say, if people ask me what I do, I'm like, I'm in the business of saving the world. And they laugh, and I'm like, let me just quickly draw you the diagram, and you'll get why I'm saying this is so important.
I was going to say, one of the things that's helped me also talk about the process of working in the arts is creative thinking. As soon as you even put the word thinking on the end, it kind of opens people's minds up just a little bit.
Yes.
And at first I was a wee bit resistant. So I was like, no, but I really want, it's just like owning the concept of play. People must like embrace it. But I think that it does help. And then the other thing I was thinking about, to your question, Annetta, was like, I have this wonderful experience of when people are reluctant a little bit older on, when you kind of break down the walls and shake up the whole age span, it really invites more of a play. So I think what continues to happen in development, where we're like closing down our walls, is that we're like stuck more and more in our identity, right? So if you have a whole room of high schoolers who are the same age, then they're going to just all conform to that sort of age. Whereas when you begin to integrate them or provide meaningful opportunities for them to be in a space with either younger children or elders, or kind of open up this space of a community, then they begin to give themselves permission to play very naturally and very meaningfully. And I think that that is something that I've been noticing lately and I've been really interested in. So I'm wondering, Hanneke, if you've had those types of experiences as well, where maybe there's multi-generational that are kind of embracing this ability to play and take risk.
Love that, Lindsay.
Yeah, I mean, I am so passionate about what you're saying right now. I have a little boy who has to enter grade 1 formal schooling next year, and we've been looking to find a place for him to be schooled. And I'm moving to Oslo to basically go to flow school, or to Maine with you, Lindsay, to go to Sweet Tree, because I don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do. I don't want to knock some really good traditional schools here, but it's all still boxing those children in that way. It's all subjects that are different subjects in different rooms, different ages delineated together. And we know that all the research says that that's not how children best learn. I've seen a school that's being formed in America called the Future of Education.
Future of Education, yes.
Yes, Future of Education, and her surname is Price. I always forget to give proper recognition. We'll find it. But look up the Future of Education, and they've got a model where there's
2 hour learning.
2 hour learning block, and then and you can be at any stage, right? So you could be an 8-year-old doing maths at an 11-year-old level, and then there's inter-age play, and it's all project based. And I kind of look at something like that. So they're after like the children, so they do their 2 hour block, and then they choose the project they're interested in, whether it's building an Airbnb or a rocket, or I don't know, creating a new whatever. And they just immerse in this project for a number of weeks and they move on. And I know this model is also something you're looking at with Flow School, Annetta, so I'm so excited about what you are going to be able to do. But as a mom, I find it really quite sad that in the year of our Lord, 2025, looking at 2026, in a city which is called the New York of Africa, Johannesburg, that I live, I cannot find a school close to that. And the only option I really have is homeschooling in terms of that. Now, when we come with Buzz, we often have to work within the system that the schools provide us with, that the government provides us with. And we are just trying in small bits to add things like what you're mentioning, but just even if we can get the little bit right of, is there even creative art happening in the school? Or, like I said, the education in art or the education through art. At the very least, can I help the teacher be a little bit playful? Like just a little bit, get out from behind the desk. That's what I'm fighting for at the moment. Get out from behind the desk and do something that's not just for those few children who learn well in traditional way. Most children learn better through play, but especially the neurodiverse and those who are often stigmatized and marginalized for not sitting still and learning with the pen and paper kind of thing. Learn through play, for me, in brackets, is kind of like the dirty secret. And you're right. People are not ready for that word. I sat in a very important meeting with a very important person the other day at the country club, and he said to me, I buy it all until you use the word art. He said, can we just not use that word? And you're right. Like if you add thinking after creativity, it's somehow more palatable in the big bad world out there, not in this circle. But I don't know what that is about being so afraid. Is it because of what artists used to represent, or that we're all a bunch of witches. I don't know what it is, but like, why are we so afraid of the power of what it does for learning? What I usually get when I get a little bit of people lighting up is when I say to them here in South Africa, I'm like, we're Africans. The history of humankind is storytelling and song and movement. When did we decide to keep that outside the classroom and make it an extracurricular thing? So yes, children are allowed to go sing in the choir afterwards or do a bit of ballet. But when we're in here, we're serious. You've taken humanity out. Like, I could get so, I mean, I'm hysterical about it.
But you really have to show evidence. You have to show proof in order for them to open their eyes, to like
Yes.
just open their mindsets, like everything about that. And I feel like play and arts are something that you do on Friday afternoon, maybe. Like it's like a treat or it's like an extra thing. But if you turn it around and you start with that and you really see like all the opportunities for math to learn through the arts,
Yes.
for language to learn through the arts. And if people really need these hands-on examples, they need the evidence. So we really have to present that for them and lay down all the facts in order for them to listen without judgment, to listen without like all the former ideas that they've created about that, because they're very stuck in their own patterns to like, okay, academics, grades, that's school. That's all that is, right? And play and arts are just treats. So here you are changing that, and that's just amazing. So thank you both for doing that and putting all that work in there. And I think it's for so many people, like even for me, like I have not really learned to use arts or to use play before because like I wasn't schooled like that either. I really had to experience that and experiment with that myself by like people like you inspiring me that way. Because like when you go to university to learn how to be an educator, nobody like tells you or like inspires you with that.
Unless you're tremendously lucky, right? Every once in a
Yeah.
while, you'll get a pedagogy professor who has seen those aspects to it.
Your point about needing to educate the world, the funders, the governments, and getting them to hear this is so crucial. And that's a space where I need help. Like, I'm actually hoping Oprah Winfrey, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, someone hears this and sends me some help, because my problem is, how do I say this? Because people's attention spans are less than 3 seconds these days. I go into important meetings and I start to try and build the picture. And let's be honest, I'm many beautiful things, but I'm not brief, right? It's not going to be on my tombstone. Here lies Hanneke. She was brief. So in the world of A, no value already for play through the arts, play and the arts, A. B,
Wait,
no
stop.
attention spans.
Okay, sorry, I'm going to just jump in because you're going exactly where I was hoping you were going to go.
Yeah.
So, Hanneke, you need to come up with your 6-word story. In 6 words, what is Buzz Kidz, or what does the arts bring to children's lives? 6 words.
6 words.
You can do it. Constraints build creativity. So let's do it.
Education, development, no, child development and education improved by the arts.
Awesome.
Something like that. But you know, this is the challenge. I mean, your challenge there to me, that is the challenge. We're living in a world where people are busy and stressed, and we are sitting in traditional ways of thinking. We have these predetermined ideas of what the arts, where it sits. And I'm not saying here that these are boundaries that we cannot cross, but together as a community, you know, when we talk about not working in silos, it's exactly that challenge, like say it in 6 minutes, or opening a door for one another, or getting that audience with the Queen. I don't know what it is, but I just know that the message, I need help from fellow arts educators or edupreneurs or entrepreneurs or edupreneurs, whatever we might be, to stand together and to find a way to have people listen to this, because I hope it's not my failure of being able to say it effectively that's standing in the way. You do need that space to kind of paint that picture, but we're not living in a world where people have that type of attention span anymore. unfortunately. And we're all vying for the same buck or the little bit of funding or the little bit of a platform. And the beautiful thing about us and the work we do, and I include both of you in this, is that by no means am I hereby saying that coding or mathematics is no longer important. I want all of those things to exist, but I just really want to fight for this thing to also exist in a far more dynamic way than it's currently been given life in the
Is
world.
there some recent groundbreaking research that has
Yes,
been done?
there's lots. There's so
A
much.
lot, a lot.
But I haven't heard about it. So there needs to be like groundbreaking research that like everybody hears about, that is like on the news, right? You said like that is on Oprah, that is on, so everybody hears about it.
But
Yes.
here's the thing. Sorry, I think it comes again back down to the vulnerability and creating safe space for people, because the reason you withdraw is because you know you have to give, but when you give, you receive, and there's this wonderful ability within that context, but not everyone's ready for that for a whole variety of reasons. And that's okay. So it's sort of starting where you are and then just saying, this is an invitation, always an invitation to be a little more alive, a little more vulnerable, a little more human. And, I have an incredible privilege to work with teachers as well and some training. And I just got a presentation from one of the teachers, and he quoted Winston Churchill, which I hadn't thought of in years, but he fought for the arts when they were cutting funds all the time. He was like, why
Yes.
are we fighting? Why are we doing this? And why, no, we're not cutting the arts, because this is our humanity. And to sort of begin to think about how, and fascinating to me to be in this moment of time and hear people singing in Congress, "We shall overcome."
Yes.
People creating more art, the beautiful signs at all the protests that we see. Like, art is everywhere and it comes forward most. And I think there's this tendency to say, well, and you save it for, maybe we save it as humans for the most important times. So there's something very powerful in that. So look around and
Yeah.
and see how actually embedded into our lives
It
the
is
arts is.
life itself. The arts is culture. Culture doesn't exist, and therefore humans. Exactly what you just said. That quote by Winston Churchill says, "What are we going to war for? What are we fighting for if we're going to destroy all those beautiful artworks?" And he wasn't going to slash arts and culture budgets. And he made the connection that we, as humans, that we are our language, our stories, our music, our paintings. We are art. That is what culture is. I don't think it's a lack of research. There is so much research about learn through play, Lego, UNICEF, and about the value and academic improvement and just how children's 21st century skills explode from the arts. I mean, it's unbelievable. But I think there's connections that are due to be made more between those things. And I think you've hit the nail on the head, Lindsay, about what we as artists do, because we are generous, because we make space, because we're not like, I'm passionate when I get going and I'm given the space, but I'll never like overpower. I'll be like, yes, yes, okay, cool. Yeah, no, we still have to count, and, we still have to be able to read, and good, got you, got you. I think, I think we're not as aggressive just as a species, the way we built. Like, we make space, we hold space, we listen to story. And so maybe the time is coming. Maybe there is something in this next revolution of education where we can really fight and be a little bit brave and insistent on what the arts bring, that it's not even a question of whether or not the arts, it shouldn't even, it's to be human. And I'll close this little rant with saying Neil deGrasse Tyson, one of the world's most incredible scientists, astrophysicists, he is a rock star. I mean, he's one of the coolest people in the world. And he explains to you how black holes work and how long you would travel to Mars. He was interviewing someone the other day, actually David Byrne from Talking Heads. And the two of them were just talking about the most fundamental thing they would not deprive their own children of is arts education. And Neil deGrasse Tyson says it's not because everyone comes out an artist, it's because the fundamental skills that a child has been exposed to any form of art has, that he or she, that child is more inquisitive, more curious, more collaborative, more empathetic, more. Neil deGrasse Tyson, I wouldn't have thought that he's ever even listened to a song, But then he goes into, he then quotes the Churchill quote about the arts, and it's just how history speaks back at itself. I mean, if you think about all this stuff that's just now come out about the pyramids again, I think it's maybe not about something that we have to learn, Annette. It's about something we've forgotten that we have to relearn. Like,
Yes.
it's not, it is in us. It is in us that we learn through storytelling song.
I have a bridge because like now I'm thinking what maybe the problem can be. So why it is not integrated. And you two are like so passionate about it. And I am learning to become more passionate about it. I'm like slightly not on the other side. That sounds a bit weird, maybe, because I'm like all with you. Like I all feel you and I all hear you. But I was always told when I had arts class in school that they wouldn't even look at my drawing. They wouldn't even like, they were just like, the teacher said, like, okay, a 5.5, that means like out of 10. So you just passed, but that's it. Or like even at university, when I was in art class, the teacher told me that what I created was a waste of the materials. So that is what I've heard. And that is like my art background. So I really had to unlearn being wrong in arts and just having to make it right. So if you would like, now I'm saying everybody is an artist. I believe that everybody is an artist. And that is what
Yes.
I want to model to my learners, to all the people around me, that everybody is an artist. And what does it mean to be an artist? But I really had to rewrite that for myself again, what it means to be an artist. Because in my head, I had learned that an artist is somebody who creates beautiful things that everybody appreciates, or that is like perfect, that is so beautiful, and that needs like all the praise. So I saw people in the class who were artists, but it was not me because I was not good enough. So that is what was programmed, like this pattern in my head of being an artist. So when I started to become an educator, I didn't want to do arts in class, like because I just had this weird connection, or there was no connection with me and arts. Do you get what I mean?
That's many people's stories. I've
Yeah.
heard that
Yes. So
again.
that's
Yeah.
where I think where things can come from when you have this like slight um like
So
feeling against the arts.
you're onto something really important, Anetta. And Hanneke, that maybe is a great place to start when you're in those conversations to say, tell me about your arts experience as a kid. Tell
Yes.
me about what it was that's making you push away from this word, because let's get curious about that.
Yeah. But also further to that point, so for me, I, as much of a total nut job I am for the arts, I, Hanneke, will often say that I can't draw well, and then I'm like, listen to yourself. Like it's like a fish who says she can't swim. How can you even say that? Because even me, I was programmed like you that I wasn't like a visual artist. But I think with that, there's two things. One is you've got terrible people that we were exposed to, and there's not always like great people in teaching roles who say things like that, because art is always going to be a subjective opinion anyway about a good piece of music or a bad piece of music, about a good piece of theater or a bad book, whatever, right? That's subjective, first of all. And so it takes a certain intelligence to understand that there is no good or bad in that space.
One of my mentors would always say, and he was an incredible musician, he would say, he would have the kids across the room and he'd say, go on this side and go on that side, and this is good and this is bad. All right, stand there, right? And now I want someone to come in the middle and just move around and dance around in the middle. Isn't that so much more fun than being
Yeah,
one side or another? And then,
yeah,
and that's what the arts should be about, is all the good stuff in the middle, all the
mm,
ability to kind of move in and out in the gray, and there's
mm,
not, and it's making a mess, and then really just playing. But that's scary for people too, because you don't know the outcome. You're not sure what's going to happen when you're in there.
But again, it's a teacher in a school who's used to, like, if I said 1 + 1 is 2, it was right. So therefore, to draw a picture in the style of pixelate Van Gogh, then that is right. And if I do that right, then I've got that right. Which I understand why we got here. I understand why we've broken the idea of art. We've broken it because instead of teaching, what would probably be better time spent is to teach a child that there is no right and wrong, and to try and formulate, why do you like that picture? What is it about this thing that you drew that you're trying to say? That would probably be a time better spent. But we've got teachers who are also trying to make a living on a very low income, who are also teaching maths, who are now being forced to make these children draw. So that's what happened to us. The other thing I want to say is there's two things. One is we're forcing the arts to sit in this bad mold, which we're already saying is kind of not what education should be. And that's why someone like you or I in our 40s can go, I'm not good at art. To break art out of that mold completely also is the thing that I think is even harder for people to do is to go, okay, forget about a beautiful picture and a nice one. Forget about a good play and a bad play. Forget about the right and the wrong. What if we just took music into the space where we're learning about these mammals and we're moving like mammals? What's now happening? That's what I'm passionate about. What if we all become the insects and we behave like they did, or we enact this war, or we become the machine that we're trying to build with the robotics? That is where something happens. It's the function of art as opposed to the objective value of art that we have lost. You understand? So that's again, for me, a nice definition. And I give credit to Anne Bamford. Education in art, education through art. Education in art is this thing of we all learn to paint and we were told it's good and bad, and even that is not good because all
Stop
is good.
reading that too, maybe.
All is good. And on this side, bring the arts into every other part of learning as an experiential part that makes this part and that part and that part of the brain come into the learning experience.
But I think that's the most important part. Like the way you use art. And if you start using it instead of like almost like abusing it
Yes.
in education, right? So
Yeah.
if we use it, if we see like all the ways that, so that is for me as like the person who has like this almost like arts anxiety, just
Yeah.
like my math anxiety, it's like arts anxiety. And I recognize that in learners too. So I had this girl in my class with autism and ADHD, and she just wouldn't draw. She wouldn't, because like if she started drawing and one line was off, it was not perfect, it was not good, she would just like throw away the paper and start over. And at some point, she wouldn't even start anymore. Like, I hate this. Like, I don't want to draw. I'm so bad at it. I'm horrible at it. And it really took so long before her to understand like her mindset, how she can actually control her mindset in that and be like, okay with it. Who tells me what's right or wrong? Or like, is there any perfect in this? Like, so it really took a long time for her to understand that. And I think if it wasn't for me investing in her art mindset, then she would have still hated drawing. And now she loves it. She's really into it. And she's totally fine with making any mistakes and actually embracing all the weird drawings she makes and laughing
Yeah.
about that. And also, so that is like the art anxiety that for us as educators, we can learn to recognize that. And maybe it's easier for me to recognize because I have experienced that myself. So I think that's like
Yeah. What I love about your story and what I love about working in an arts filled classroom is that every day you get those moments. So it comes to the surface and then you know what to do as an educator. You knew how to respond to her. You knew how to encourage her. And you have these opportunities left and right where there's frustration, there's anxiety, and then you have an opportunity to respond with kindness, with compassion, with another opportunity. Just show me one part of that drawing that you actually like, just one little line. I bet you can find something, right? And then, so that's, it's everywhere. And then children get another opportunity and another opportunity to rethink how they're being seen in the world, what they're offering to the world. And it's every day, whether they're dancing, whether they're singing, and you just keep going and you just keep trusting them, and then they learn to trust themselves.
I think it's
that's so
also
beautiful. Ladies, I think we can talk for like 5 more hours. But Hanneke, are you ready for the very last question?
What about this one? Can you do it in 6 words again?
Should I ask it in Afrikaans this time?
let's try. See if you
Yeah.
can do it in Afrikaans.
Wat is jouw grote droom voor onderwijs? Voor de toekomst? What is your big dream for education?
Very, very, very good, Annette, the Afrikaans there. My dream for education for the future is rewind this episode and listen to everything we've already said. For the sake of moving, for the sake of my big dream for education is that we make space for children to learn in a way that is natural. We make space for smaller voices to be a part of dreaming that big dream. I don't know, like the way I think children used to learn. I think if you look at tribes and ancient society, children were with older kids that were naturally mentoring them, and they looked after the young ones and they followed their curiosity and they had to stay safe. And I know that sounds maybe very elementary to answer it like that. And often that same type of debate comes in when you ask someone about like the diet that you follow and you say, well, I like to eat like ancient person, so I like to eat high protein. And then they're like, oh, no, but we're no longer ancient man, we're modern man or society. So that's a silly answer. We've developed our prefrontal cortex, so you don't have to, for the sake of the metaphor, fast anymore or eat high protein and whatever. I think it's the same thing in the education space. Is go back to some ancient wisdom around that. I think how human beings used to learn. There's another person I really find very fascinating in this space, Ted Dinser-Smith and Tony Wagner, and they've made interesting films about future of education and those most likely to succeed. And this education system we're sitting with is only about 150 years old. And prior to that, it was very much clever people sitting, ruminating, like we are now, calling ourselves clever. And there was a very natural flow of information and then going into the world and just trying and failing with things. So I think it's too rigid. I think education looks too much like a factory. There's lots of nuance and detail I can get into in terms of what my dream for it is, but I think it's back to remembering what we are, which is playful, which is artistic, which is song and dance and movement and
You did it.
human connection.
You did your story.
Was that six? Which ones? Which six?
Playful, movement, music, art, and story. One more. Together.
Development.
I think my last thing that I just would like to add there is that when we say art as well, we really all often, I think we all assume we're talking about fine art and visual art, just thinking about sort of the common idea out there. And maybe then we're thinking about string instruments. But I just want to also just invite thinking about the arts as all of those down and low, dirty art forms, movement, acting. There's a hierarchy in the arts itself as well. And it's often the more innate arts, the bits we don't feel embarrassed to do, the playfulness and the acting and the singing and the movement, that's the way in. The way in is the innate arts. We all can sing, we all can move, and we all can be playful. So for me, it's an invitation for us all to just think about what comes innate with us. We don't need a violin. We don't even need a piece of paper. The arts I'm referring to is stuff inside us.
That's beautiful, Hanneke. Thank you so, so much. You're such an inspiration.
Thanks for this chat.